Captain Lee walked into the big meeting room of the Deathworld Alliance with a small box in his hands. The room was huge and filled with the scariest fighters in the whole galaxy. The walls were made of black metal and covered with weapons from 100 different worlds. The lights were bright and cold, making everything look dangerous. The Vorthic warriors stood like mountains in the room. Their skin looked like dragon scales and their eyes glowed red in the dark. They were so tall that Lee had to look way up to see their faces. Each one could probably crush a small car with their bare hands. Their claws made clicking sounds on the metal floor when they moved. Next to them stood the Nexari people, who looked like they were made of living crystal. Their bodies caught the light and threw rainbows everywhere, but Lee knew those pretty colors hid deadly weapons inside. Each crystal point on their bodies could cut through steel like butter. They moved like dancers but fought like demons. The Zephyrate soldiers filled another corner of the room with their bug-like bodies. Their big compound eyes watched everything at once, and their sharp mandibles clicked together, making sounds like knives being sharpened. They had 4 arms each and could move faster than most people could think. All these terrible fighters were staring at Lee and his small box with confusion written all over their alien faces. They had expected the famous human warriors to bring weapons or battle plans or maybe some scary Earth technology. Instead, Lee carried something that looked like it might hold jewelry. Commander Vex stepped forward from the Vorthak group. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together in an earthquake, and his breath smelled like sulfur from volcanic worlds. He was the biggest warrior in the room, and his reputation for winning battles was known across 50 star systems. "What is this tiny offering human?" he growled, while looking down at Lee like he might step on him. The other aliens made agreeing sounds that ranged from crystalline chimes to insect buzzing. All of them seemed disappointed that the humans had not brought something more impressive. Lee smiled big and bright, like he was talking to friendly neighbors instead of the most dangerous killers in space. He set his box down on the central table and opened it carefully. Inside was a small furry creature with round black eyes and tiny pink paws. The creature looked up at all the scary aliens without any fear at all. "Meet Buddy," said Lee proudly. "He is what we humans call a hamster. Consider him a friendship gift to make our new partnership stronger." The little animal started grooming his whiskers with his small paws, completely ignoring the fact that he was surrounded by beings who could destroy planets. The alien warriors looked at each other with expressions that mixed confusion with annoyance. They had formed this alliance to combine their strength and fight bigger enemies together. When the humans asked to join, they expected to receive advanced weapons or at least some useful military equipment. Instead, they got what looked like a living cotton ball. Dr. Kim stepped up next to Lee, carrying a medical scanner and some scientific equipment. Her eyes were bright with excitement as she looked at all the alien warriors. She had studied their species for years and was thrilled to finally meet them in person. "Buddy represents the best of Earth's small companion animals," she explained. "While checking the scanner readings, he needs very little care. He is friendly to everyone, and he is absolutely harmless to other living beings. Perfect for keeping on your flagship as a way to make everyone feel better." The Nexari delegate leaned down to get a closer look at Buddy. Her crystal body made musical sounds as she moved, and her rainbow patterns shifted to show scientific curiosity. The little hamster looked back at her with his bright black eyes and made a tiny squeaking sound. "It appears to be vibrating," she said in a voice like wind chimes. Her people communicated partly through vibrations, so she noticed things that others might miss. The small creature did seem to be making a very quiet humming sound that is called purring. Lee explained cheerfully, "It means he is happy and content right now. He is probably excited to meet so many new friends." He reached into the box and gently petted Buddy, who leaned into the touch and made even happier sounds. What the humans did not mention was that Buddy was not exactly a normal hamster. He came from a special group that had lived for millions of years in the deep caves under Australia, where huge spiders, venomous snakes, and other deadly creatures had taught his ancestors some very unusual ways to stay alive. These survival tricks were about to become very important. Commander Vex looked at the tiny animal for a long moment. His warrior instincts told him that anything the humans offered should be treated with respect. The humans had earned their place in the alliance by surviving things that would kill most other species. If they thought this creature was worth sharing, maybe it had some hidden value. The Meeting continued with talks about patrol route supply, lines and battle strategies, but everyone kept looking at the small hamster in his clear container. Buddy seemed perfectly happy to be the center of attention. He ran on a tiny wheel, ate some seeds, and explored every corner of his temporary home as. The formal discussions ended. Commander Thex made the decision to accept the gift partly because he did not want to insult their new human allies. The Deathworld Alliance had learned that humans were surprisingly tough fighters despite looking weak and soft. If humans thought this animal was important, then maybe it was worth having. The small habitat was carefully moved to the Alliance flagship Death Edge, where it was placed in the common area where all the crew members could see it. The alien warriors gathered around to watch their new shipmate with the same intensity they usually saved for studying enemy battle tactics. Park, the human liaison officer, who would stay on the ship, helped set up Buddy's new home with great care. She showed the confused alien crew how to give him fresh water, the right kind of food, and clean bedding. The warriors listened like she was giving them instructions for handling dangerous explosives. Remember, Park said seriously, hamsters are very sensitive to their environment. Any sudden changes or too much stress can cause them to react in ways you might not expect. She looked around at all the alien faces to make sure they understood how important this was. The aliens nodded with the same seriousness they showed during weapons training. After all, if their human allies trusted them with this creature, they would protect it with their lives. Honor demanded nothing less than perfect care that first night as the great warship traveled through hyperspace toward their next mission. Buddy settled into his new surroundings. The gentle humming of the ship engines reminded him of the deep cave systems where his family had lived for countless generations. He explored every corner of his habitat, testing the boundaries and getting used to the strange new smells and sounds around him. The alien crew members took turns checking on him throughout their different shifts. Fascinated by his simple daily activities, Commander Thex even found himself stopping during his evening security rounds to watch the small creature grooming himself with his tiny paws. Such a peaceful existence, he rumbled to his second in command. Perhaps there is wisdom in the human's gift after all. The little animals seemed to bring a sense of calm to the ship that none of them had expected. But as Buddy drifted off to sleep in his cozy nest made of soft earth materials, none of them realized what they had truly brought aboard their warship. The hamster genetic memory carried instincts that had been shaped by millions of years of surviving in one of Earth's most hostile environments, instincts that were about to be triggered by something no one could have predicted. The ship continued its journey through the dark space between stars, carrying its crew of dangerous warriors and one small Earth creature who looked innocent but carried within him the survival wisdom of a world that made their own. Deathworlds seemed like peaceful gardens. The stage was set for an adventure that would test everything the Alliance thought they knew about strength, power, and the true meaning of survival. 3 days passed quietly on the great warship Death Edge, and everyone had gotten used to having their small furry friend aboard. The alien crew members found themselves looking forward to checking on Buddy during their shifts, watching him run on his wheel and stuff his cheeks with food. The little hamster had become a bright spot in their dangerous military lives. Ensign Cora from the Zephyrite group was doing her regular night patrol when everything changed. Her compound eyes could see in almost complete darkness, and her sensitive antennae could detect the smallest movements in the air. The ship was peaceful and quiet, with most of the crew sleeping in their quarters. She moved through the corridors with silent steps that came naturally to her insect-like body. Her people were natural hunters, and stealth was as normal to them as breathing. The ship ran on automatic systems during night hours, with only essential crew members awake to monitor the computers as she approached the common area where Buddy lived. Something seemed different. The little hamster was awake, which was not unusual since hamsters often stayed active during dark hours, but he was pressed against the far corner of his enclosure, and his tiny body was shaking with fear. Cora stopped and used all her senses to scan the area. Her antennae twitched as they detected unusual chemical signals in the air. Something else was in the room, something that did not belong on their ship. Her warrior training kicked in immediately as she identified the threat. A shadow moved across the ceiling above Buddy habitat. Something large and predatory was using the ship's air ducts to hunt. The creature had probably attached itself to their hull during their last stop at a space station. These parasites were known to feed on electrical systems and could grow quite large if left alone. Cora recognized it as a void crawler, one of the most dangerous space vermin in the galaxy. These things could drain a ship's power systems and had been known to attack crew members who got too close. They were smart, cunning, and very hard to kill. Once they got inside a vessel, a crawler dropped silently toward Buddy enclosure with its multiple legs spread wide and ready to grab what it thought would be an easy meal. Cora reached for her plasma weapon, but she was too far away to stop the attack. The creature would reach the hamster before she could get a clear shot. That was when Buddy made the first scream. The sound that came from the tiny hamster was impossible. The noise seemed to come from somewhere deep underground, like the roar of an earthquake or a volcano exploding. It was not just loud, it was a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of reality itself. The void crawler stopped in midair as if it had hit an invisible wall. The creature writhed and twisted before crashing to the floor with a wet thud. It lay there twitching for a few seconds before going completely still. The sonic attack had apparently paralyzed its nervous system instantly. Within moments, the common area filled with confused crew members who had been awakened by the ship's emergency alarms. The sound had been so loud that it triggered every security system on the vessel. Commander Thex arrived first, his massive frame filling the doorway. As he surveyed the scene, report, he bellowed over the dying echoes of Buddy's scream. His voice could normally be heard over battlefield noise, but even he had to shout to be understood. The sound was still reverberating through the ship's hull, making everything vibrate. Cora pointed at the motionless crawler with one of her forearms. Sir, there was a parasitic intruder threatening the human pet. The creature defended itself with some kind of sonic weapon. She was still stunned by what she had witnessed. Everyone turned to look at Buddy, who had returned to his normal size and was now calmly cleaning his whiskers as if nothing extraordinary had happened. His black eyes were alert but showed no signs of aggression or fear. He looked like any ordinary pet who had just finished dealing with a minor annoyance. Dr. Yex, the ship's science officer, hurried into the room with her portable scanning equipment. Her crystalline form was flickering with excited patterns as she began taking readings from both the crawler and the hamster. This is impossible, she muttered while staring at her instruments. The sound readings suggest a sonic blast capable of stunning creatures 50 times this mammal's size, she announced to the gathered crew. The frequency and amplitude combinations should have torn the small animal apart, yet he shows no signs of physical damage. Park arrived at a run, having been awakened by the ship-wide alarm system. She took one look at the paralyzed crawler and the innocent-looking hamster, and her face went pale. Oh no, she whispered. Nobody told you about the defense mechanisms, did they? Commander Thex turned his intimidating gaze toward the human liaison officer. His red eyes glowed brighter when he was angry, and right now they looked like twin suns. Explain, he demanded in a voice that made the deck plates vibrate. Park knelt beside Buddy Habitat, speaking in soothing tones to the hamster. While addressing the assembled aliens, Buddy ancestors evolved in cave systems. Alongside some of Earth's most dangerous predators, they developed unique survival adaptations, including the ability to produce warning calls that can temporarily paralyze threats. Warning calls. Dr. Yek's voice rose several octaves. That was the equivalent of a military-grade sonic weapon discharged at point-blank range. How is such a thing possible from an organism this small? Only when he feels genuinely threatened, Park explained quickly. Under normal circumstances, he is completely harmless, but if he perceives a direct threat to his safety, his instincts take over. She gestured toward the motionless crawler as evidence. Commander Thex examined the paralyzed creature with new respect. The thing that had been a genuine threat to his ship's systems now lay helpless on the floor, defeated by what appeared to be a completely natural defense mechanism. The implications were staggering. The humans, he said slowly, gave us a guardian. The other crew members exchanged glances, beginning to understand that their new pet was far more than he appeared. Word quickly spread throughout the ship about Buddy's defensive capabilities, and the small hamster became something of a celebrity. But this was only the beginning. As the ship continued its journey through space, more situations would arise that would trigger Buddy's prehistoric instincts. Each incident would reveal new aspects of what Earth evolution could produce. when survival was the only rule that mattered in an endless war against extinction. The next morning brought an emergency meeting in the main briefing room. Every department head and senior officer crowded around the central table where Dr. Yex had set up her scientific equipment. The room buzzed with excited conversation as everyone tried to understand what had happened during the night. Dr. Yex activated her holographic display showing complex wave patterns and energy readings. I have analyzed the creature's defensive response from multiple angles. She began. Her crystalline form shifted through different colors as she spoke, indicating her scientific excitement. The sound production mechanism appears to involve specialized chambers in the creature's throat combined with muscle contractions that amplify volume by factors I previously thought impossible. She pointed to different parts of her analysis. The frequency patterns match seismic detection equipment used for monitoring planetary earthquakes. Commander Thex leaned forward in his chair, which groaned under his massive weight. Are you saying this tiny mammal possesses military-grade capabilities? The idea seemed to challenge everything he thought he knew about warfare and biology. I am saying it possesses capabilities that exceed our current military grade technology, Dr. Yex corrected. The frequency and amplitude combinations should theoretically destroy any creature this size, yet the hamster shows no signs of physical stress or damage whatsoever. Soon the ship's communications officer raised one of his tentacle-like appendages. Could this be why humans are such effective warriors? If their small companion animals possess such abilities, what must their apex predators be capable of? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone aboard had heard stories about human combat effectiveness, but they had attributed it to technology tactics and their famous stubbornness. The possibility that Earth itself might have shaped them into something far more formidable was terrifying. Park shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Look, I know this seems impressive, but Buddy really is just a pet. His species developed these traits over millions of years in response to very specific environmental pressures. Most Earth animals do not have anything like his abilities. Most. Commander Thex's voice carried a note of suspicious interest. The word implied that some Earth creatures might have even more impressive capabilities than what they had already witnessed. Well, Park hedged. Earth has some unique ecosystems. Australia, in particular, tends to produce creatures with unusual survival adaptations. She seemed reluctant to elaborate on exactly what those adaptations might involve before anyone could pursue this line of questioning further. The ship's alarm system activated again. This time it was not the security alert from the previous night, but the general quarters alarm that meant immediate combat was about to begin. Lieutenant Cho rushed onto the bridge from the sensor station. Sir, we are detecting 3 pirate vessels approaching our position. They are broadcasting standard demands for surrender and cargo transfer. The pirates apparently had not heard about the ship's new guardian. Commander Thex rose from his chair with predatory grace. Pirates dare to threaten a Deathworld Alliance vessel. They clearly do not understand what they are facing. His confidence was shared by the entire crew, who had never lost a battle. The crew moved with practiced efficiency to battle stations. These were experienced warriors who had fought across dozens of star systems, and the prospect of combat brought out their natural excitement. They prepared their weapons, charged their shields, and readied themselves for another easy victory. But as the ship prepared for engagement, something unexpected happened in the common area below. Buddy, apparently sensitive to the increased stress levels and aggressive energy filling the ship, began to pace nervously in his habitat. His small nose twitched as he detected chemical changes in the air. Park, monitoring the hamster condition during the alert, noticed his agitation immediately. Oh no, she muttered, reaching for her communicator. Commander Thex, I need to speak with you urgently about Buddy behavioral patterns. Not now, Liaison Park. We have pirates to deal with, the commander replied curtly. His attention was focused on the approaching enemy vessels and their weapons systems. Sir, this is about Buddy. I think you need to understand something about territorial defense instincts. Before her warning was interrupted by the sound of weapons fire as the pirates opened their attack. The first pirate vessel fired its opening salvo against the Alliance ship's shields. The impact sent vibrations through the hull that reached every part of the vessel, including Buddy habitat. To the small hamster, this represented a direct attack on his new territory, his home, his pack. The scream that emerged this time was different from his previous defensive call where the first had been a warning to a single predator. This was a full territorial challenge magnified by rage and protective instinct. The sound did not just fill the ship, it broadcast through the hull and out into space itself. On the pirate vessels, the effect was immediate and devastating. Their crews, unprepared for any kind of sonic assault, found themselves overwhelmed by a noise that bypassed their ship's audio filters. The sound struck directly at their nervous systems, causing instant disorientation. Engines stuttered as pilots lost concentration. Weapon systems misfired as gunners clutched their heads in pain, and navigation computers registered interference patterns they had never encountered. The lead pirate captain stared at his instruments in disbelief. What kind of weapon was that he demanded of his crew? Our shields registered no energy discharge, but half my crew is unconscious. His sensor operator was curled in a corner, overwhelmed by the aftereffects of Buddy territorial scream. Captain, that was not a weapon, the young alien gasped. That was organic, something alive made that sound. The realization sent terror through the pirate fleet as they understood they were facing something beyond their experience within minutes. All three pirate vessels were retreating at maximum speed. Their crews were too shaken to continue the engagement. They left behind confused sensor readings and a mystery that would spread through the criminal underworld aboard the Alliance ship. The crew stood in stunned silence as they watched their attackers flee. Commander Thex turned to Park with an expression that mixed respect with deep concern. Liaison Park, he said carefully, I believe we need to have a much longer conversation about Earth animals and their defensive capabilities. The universe had just become a much more interesting and dangerous place. The emergency briefing room had been converted into something like a classroom, with Park standing before a collection of the galaxy most dangerous warriors who hung on her every word like eager students. The irony was not lost on anyone present. As these feared fighters learned about Earth biology, Earth Park began activating a holographic display of her home planet, is what we call a Class 12 Deathworld, but that classification was created by species who evolved on much gentler planets. From our perspective, it is just home. The display showed a blue and green world that looked peaceful and beautiful from space. But as Park zoomed in to show different regions, the assembled aliens began to see why Earth had earned its terrifying reputation among galactic civilizations. Commander Thex interrupted with a rumbling question. We understood humans to be the apex predators of your world. That assumption seemed logical given human combat effectiveness in the Alliance. Park laughed, and the sound made several aliens lean back instinctively. Humans, we are not even close to being apex predators. We are endurance hunters who got lucky with opposable thumbs and big brains. Let me show you what real Earth predators look like. The holographic display shifted to show a massive saltwater crocodile launching itself out of water to catch prey. The assembled aliens watched in fascination as the creature demonstrated speed, power, and predatory intelligence that rivaled their own most feared species. This is just one of our reptilian predators, Park explained casually. We have mammals that can take down prey 50 times their size, birds that can spot movement from distances your sensors could not match, and insects that coordinate attacks with tactical precision. The list continued with increasingly impressive examples: bears that could smell prey from 20 kilometers away, sharks that could sense electrical fields from living creatures, and spiders that could calculate trajectory and wind resistance for their web placement. Dr. Yex crystalline form flickered rapidly, indicating intense scientific interest. But if humans are not apex predators, how did you develop such effective combat abilities? Your species' reputation for warfare is known throughout the galaxy. Survival pressure. Park answered simply. Every creature on Earth had to evolve defenses against everything else on Earth. Buddy sonic scream is actually relatively mild compared to some adaptations we have. Creatures that generate electricity, plants that are deadly to touch, and animals that can see heat signatures. The revelation hit the alien warriors like a physical blow. They had spent their careers believing that they represented the pinnacle of biological warfare evolution, only to discover that an entire planet of creatures had been quietly surpassing them for millions of years. Ensign Cora raised a trembling appendage. Are you saying that every creature from your world possesses hidden combat capabilities? The possibility seemed to challenge everything they thought they knew about the universe. Not combat capabilities exactly, Park clarified survival capabilities. The difference is that combat implies aggression, but most Earth creatures are just trying to live another day. They developed incredible abilities because they had to, not because they wanted to fight. Commander Vex processed this information with the strategic mind that had won him countless battles. This explains human effectiveness. In warfare, you are not naturally aggressive, you are naturally adaptive. That adaptability made humans incredibly dangerous opponents. Exactly. Park enthusiasm made several aliens flinch. Humans succeeded because we learned to work together and use tools, but we never stopped being prey animals at heart. That is why we are so good at threat assessment, rapid response, and surviving impossible situations. The ship's intercom crackled to life, interrupting the educational session. All senior officers to the bridge immediately. We are receiving priority communications from Alliance Command. The tone suggested something important was happening. As the group made their way to the bridge, they found Admiral Vex's holographic form waiting for them. The massive Nexari leader crystalline structure pulsed with urgent colors that indicated extreme concern about whatever news he was about to deliver. Commander Vex, the Admiral began without delay, we are receiving reports from across the sector about unusual acoustic phenomena. 3 pirate fleets have abandoned their territories, claiming they encountered some kind of organic super weapon. The Admiral continued. Military sensors detected sound patterns that our xenobiologists insist are impossible for any known species to produce. The reports are causing panic among criminal organizations, who fear they are facing some new Alliance technology. Commander Vex glanced at Park, who nodded encouragingly. Admiral, I believe we can explain those reports. It relates to our human gift. The small mammal you mentioned earlier has proven to have remarkable defensive capabilities. The small mammal. Admiral Vex's form shifted to express disbelief. Commander, this is not the time for jokes about pets. We are dealing with a galaxy-wide security situation that could affect Alliance operations. The Admiral words were cut off as Buddy, apparently disturbed by the raised voices and aggressive postures on the bridge, let out another territorial scream. This one was shorter than his previous efforts, but still powerful enough to make the ship's hull vibrate. Admiral Vex image flickered and distorted as the sonic wave passed through the ship's communication systems. When the connection stabilized, the Admiral crystalline form had shifted to colors that indicated shock and complete amazement. Was that the Admiral asked slowly, the small mammal. The question came out as barely a whisper as the implications of what he had just experienced began to sink in. Yes, Sir. Commander Vex confirmed. It appears that Earth evolutionary pressures have produced creatures with capabilities that exceed our current understanding of biological limits. This small animal has already neutralized multiple threats through purely natural means. The Admiral form shifted through several color patterns as processing this information took considerable time. Commander, you will immediately proceed to Alliance headquarters with your human gift. Our scientists need to study this creature immediately. As the communication ended, Park noticed that every alien on the bridge was staring at her with expressions she could not quite interpret. There was respect certainly, but also something that might be fear or religious liaison. Park, Commander Vex said carefully, when humans offered to join the Deathworld Alliance, exactly how many other Earth creatures did your government consider sending as gifts? The question carried implications that worried everyone present. Park, innocent smile, did not reassure anyone. Oh, we have a whole catalog of potential ambassador animals, but he was actually one of the gentler options. We thought you might want to start small and work your way up to the really impressive species. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Buddy contentedly running on his exercise wheel, completely oblivious to the fact that he had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Alliance headquarters had never seen anything like the gathering that filled its main assembly hall. Representatives from dozens of warrior species crowded into the massive chamber, each wanting to witness the demonstration of Earth impossible biology. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Buddy sat in his specially constructed habitat at the center of the hall, completely unbothered by the hundreds of predatory eyes focused on him. He methodically worked his way through a pile of sunflower seeds while the galaxy's most dangerous creatures debated his significance. The assembly hall was a marvel of engineering with curved walls that rose 5 stories high in viewing, galleries that could hold thousands of delegates. The floor was made of polished stone from a dozen different worlds, and the ceiling showed a holographic display of the galaxy itself. Dr. Zahn, the Alliance chief xenobiologist, presented her preliminary findings to the assembled delegates. Her insectoid form clicked nervously as she addressed beings who could crush her without effort, but her scientific enthusiasm overcame her natural fear. Colleagues, what we are observing challenges fundamental assumptions about biological limitations. She announced this creature's sonic output reaches levels that should be physically impossible for an organism of this size and structure. Her holographic displays showed wave pattern analysis that made even the most experienced scientists gasp. The energy readings were comparable to military weapons, yet they came from a creature that weighed less than most people's breakfast. High Admiral Kex of the Vorthak delegation rose from his position, casting shadows across the assembly. His reputation as the most successful military commander in Alliance history gave his words special weight when he spoke. Doctor, we have seen the recordings and heard the reports. What we want to know is whether this represents standard Earth biology, or if this creature is somehow exceptional. The question reflected the concerns of every delegate present. All eyes turned to Ambassador June, the senior human representative who had traveled from Earth specifically for this demonstration. She approached the podium with the confident stride that had become characteristic of humans in diplomatic settings. Honored allies, she began, Buddy represents what we consider a typical companion animal from Earth. He is not a warrior, not a weapon, and not the result of genetic modification. He is simply a small mammal whose ancestors evolved effective defense mechanisms. The hall erupted in concerned murmurs. The idea that a typical Earth creature possessed military-grade capabilities sent ripples of unease through the assembled predators. Many began to reconsider their understanding of human capabilities. Ambassador June continued her presentation with holographic displays showing various Earth ecosystems. I want to be clear about Earth biological diversity. We estimate that our planet hosts over 8 million different species, each adapted to survive in specific environmental niches. She activated displays showing creatures that made the assembled aliens question everything they thought they knew. A mantis shrimp that could strike with bullet force, a polar bear that could smell prey from 20 kilometers away, an octopus that could solve complex puzzles. The demonstrations continued with increasingly impressive examples. Dolphins that used sophisticated echolocation systems, birds that could navigate using magnetic fields, bacteria that could survive in conditions that would sterilize most spacecraft. The point, Ambassador June concluded, is that Earth evolutionary pressures have produced biological solutions to problems your species solve with technology. We do not consider this unusual because it is our normal reality. High Admiral Kex leaned forward in his seat. Ambassador, are you suggesting that humans themselves possess similar hidden capabilities? The question carried implications that worried every military strategist present. Humans develop different survival strategies. Ambassador June answered carefully. We focused on cooperation, tool use, and adaptability, rather than specialized physical abilities, but we did evolve alongside creatures like Buddy, which shaped our capabilities. Dr. Zahn activated her recording equipment. Would it be possible to observe the creature's defensive response under controlled conditions? We need to understand the mechanism behind these impossible sonic outputs. Ambassador June nodded to Park, who approached Buddy habitat with a small device that projected holographic images. I'm going to show Buddy what his instincts interpret as a threat. Please prepare your auditory protection systems. The holographic projector created the image of a large spider descending toward Buddy enclosure. To the assembled aliens, it was obviously artificial, but Buddy prehistoric instincts did not distinguish between real and simulated threats. The scream that emerged caused immediate chaos throughout the assembly hall. Despite advanced warnings and protective equipment, half the delegates were overwhelmed by the sonic assault. Several representatives collapsed as their sensitive hearing organs were overloaded. Most impressive of all, the building's structural integrity alarms, activated as Buddy territorial call, caused vibrations that registered on seismic detection equipment located 3 levels below the assembly hall. When The sound finally faded. The hall was filled with stunned silence. High Admiral Kex, one of the few delegates who managed to remain conscious throughout the demonstration, stared at the small hamster with something approaching religious. This creature, he said slowly, could disable an entire fleet without taking a single casualty. The implications for space warfare were staggering as traditional tactics became meaningless against such capabilities. Ambassador June nodded solemnly, and he is just trying to protect himself. Imagine what Earth actual predators are capable of when they are hunting. The statement sent chills through every military mind present. Dr. Zahn, recovering from the sonic assault, managed to ask the question that was on everyone's mind. Ambassador, how many other Earth creatures would the human government be willing to share with the Alliance? Ambassador June's smile was polite but did not reach her eyes. That would depend on how well the Alliance takes care of Buddy. We consider all Earth creatures to be precious, and we would not want to overwhelm our allies. As the assembly broke for emergency consultations, Buddy returned to his normal activities, completely unaware that he had just redefined the balance of power in the galaxy. His innocent contentment highlighted the fundamental difference between Earth's approach to survival and everyone else's approach to dominance. The universe had just become a much more dangerous place, and everyone except one small hamster seemed to understand exactly what that meant for the future of galactic civilization. 6 months later, the Death Edge had become the most requested assignment in the entire Deathworld Alliance fleet. Word had spread throughout military circles about the ship with the Guardian, and every warrior species wanted to serve alongside. Earth Gift Buddy had adapted to his celebrity status with typical hamster pragmatism. His habitat had been expanded into a full ecosystem module, complete with tunnels, climbing structures, and a variety of Earth plants that made him feel at home. The module took up an entire section of the ship. He had also acquired a support staff of dedicated alien caretakers who treated their duties with religious devotion. Each species contributed their unique skills to his care. The Nexari used their crystal resonance to monitor his health, while the Zephyrite provided security. Commander Vex reviewed mission reports in his ready room, accompanied by Park and the ship's senior officers. The numbers told an impressive story that exceeded everyone's wildest expectations about the impact one small creature could have. Pirate attacks down 90% in our patrol sector. He read from his datapad, diplomatic missions achieving unprecedented success rates, first contact protocols running smoother than anyone thought possible. These results are remarkable, Dr. Yex commented from her position near the science station, her crystalline form shifting to colors that indicated scientific fascination. The creature's presence has fundamentally altered how other species perceive us. Pirates flee at the mention of our ship's name. Park nodded from her position near the viewport, watching stars streak past as they traveled to their next assignment. Buddy has become something of a legend. The screaming Guardian of the Alliance has quite a reputation across the galaxy. The reputation is well earned, Commander Vex rumbled approvingly. Yesterday's encounter with the Marauder Squadron ended before it began. They took one sensor reading of our ship's biosignature and immediately requested peaceful passage. The ship's intercom activated with a priority message from the bridge commander. We are receiving a transmission from Earth. Ambassador June wishes to speak with you privately, the tone suggested. This was not routine communication, Commander. Vex exchanged glances with his officers. Communications from Earth had become increasingly important since Buddy's arrival, and every message carried the potential for significant developments. The main screen activated to show Ambassador June sitting in what appeared to be a comfortable office overlooking a green landscape filled with trees and flowing water. The peaceful setting contrasted sharply with the military environment of the starship. Commander Vex, she began with a warm smile. I hope Buddy is settling in well with his new family. The question seemed casual but carried deeper meaning about the success of their partnership. Ambassador, he has exceeded every expectation. His presence has transformed our operational effectiveness in ways we are still discovering. Every day brought new examples of how the small hamster had changed their lives. Ambassador June's expression became more serious. I'm glad to hear that, because Earth has been monitoring the galactic response to our little friend. The results have been very interesting indeed. She activated a holographic display showing star charts with various territorial markings. Pirate activity has decreased by 60%. In sectors where Alliance ships operate, trade route security has improved dramatically. The creature has become a symbol commander. Vex observed, but he suspected there was more to this communication than simple status updates more than a symbol. Ambassador June corrected, he has become proof that Earth partnership with the Alliance is genuine and beneficial. Which brings me to the reason for this communication. She paused, and her smile returned with a slightly mischievous quality that made Park suddenly nervous about what was coming next. Earth government has approved the next phase of our cultural exchange program. We are prepared to share additional Earth creatures with trusted Alliance vessels provided they meet certain criteria. For care and responsibility, the bridge fell silent as the implications of this statement sank in. If Buddy represented a typical Earth companion animal, the prospect of additional creatures suggested possibilities that both excited and terrified everyone present. What type of creatures? Commander Vex asked carefully, not sure he wanted to know the answer, but needing to prepare his crew for whatever was coming. We were thinking of starting with a cat. Ambassador June replied innocently. They are excellent for ship security, very good at controlling pest populations, and they have interesting psychological effects on crew morale. Park made a small choking sound that might be suppressed laughter. Ambassador, maybe we should discuss the cat's other characteristics before making any commitments. The warning carried implications that worried the alien officers. Nonsense, Ambassador June interrupted cheerfully. I am sure our Alliance friends can handle a simple Earth feline after all. They have done so well with Buddy. Her confidence seemed genuine, but Park's expression suggested otherwise as the communication ended. Commander Vex turned to Park with an expression of growing concern. Liaison Park, what exactly should we expect from an Earth cat? The question carried the weight of someone who had learned to be very careful. Park considered her words carefully. Well, they are very independent, and they have excellent hunting instincts, and they are extremely territorial, and they can see in complete darkness, and they move absolutely silently. The list of abilities caused the alien officers to exchange increasingly worried glances. Each new trait sounded more threatening than the last, especially coming from a world that had already surprised them so completely. Park added as an afterthought. And they purr when they are happy, but they also make other sounds when they are hunting or defending territory. The hunting sounds are particularly effective at psychological warfare. Commander Vex looked at Buddy, who was peacefully sleeping in his nest, then back at Park. Perhaps we should request additional training before accepting this new crew member. The suggestion carried the wisdom of experience, probably a good idea. Park agreed. Earth cats are wonderful companions, but they definitely have their own approach to shipboard life and crew interactions. The understatement made everyone even more nervous as the Death Edge continued its patrol through Alliance Space. Buddy slept contentedly in his expanded habitat, unaware that he had started a revolution in interspecies relations. His simple presence had proven that Earth gifts came with responsibilities and surprises. The Deathworld Alliance had gained more than just a new member. They had discovered that true partnership sometimes came in very small, very loud packages that refused to be ignored or underestimated. Somewhere in the depths of space, pirate captains shared warnings about the ships that carried Earth creatures. The screaming had stopped, but the message continued to echo across the stars. Earth Children Part 1, The Gift. That changed everything. Captain Lee walked into the big meeting room of the Deathworld Alliance with a small box in his hands. The room was huge and filled with the scariest fighters in the whole galaxy. The walls were made of black metal and covered with weapons from 100 different worlds. The lights were bright and cold, making everything look dangerous. The Vorthic warriors stood like mountains in the room. Their skin looked like dragon scales and their eyes glowed red in the dark. They were so tall that Lee had to look way up to see their faces. Each one could probably crush a small car with their bare hands. Their claws made clicking sounds on the metal floor. When they moved, next to them stood the Nexari, people who looked like they were made of living crystal. Their bodies caught the light and threw rainbows everywhere, but Lee knew those pretty colors hid deadly weapons inside. Each crystal point on their bodies could cut through steel like butter. They moved like dancers, but fought like demons. The Zephyrite soldiers filled another corner of the room with their bug-like bodies. Their big compound eyes watched everything at once, and their sharp mandibles clicked together, making sounds like knives being sharpened. They had 4 arms each and could move faster than most people could think all these terrible. Fighters were staring at Lee and his small box with confusion written all over their alien faces. They had expected the famous human warriors to bring weapons or battle plans or maybe some scary Earth technology. Instead, Lee carried something that looked like it might hold jewelry. Commander Vex stepped forward from the Vorthek group. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together in an earthquake, and his breath smelled like sulfur from volcanic worlds. He was the biggest warrior in the room, and his reputation for winning battles was known across 50 star systems. "What is this tiny offering human?" he growled while looking down at Lee like he might step on him. The other aliens made agreeing sounds that ranged from crystalline chimes to insect buzzing. All of them seemed disappointed that the humans had not brought something more impressive. Lee smiled big and bright like he was talking to friendly neighbors instead of the most dangerous killers in space. He set his box down on the central table and opened it carefully. Inside was a small furry creature with round black eyes and tiny pink paws. The creature looked up at all the scary aliens without any fear at all. "Meet Buddy," said Lee proudly. "He is what we humans call a hamster. Consider him a friendship gift to make our new partnership stronger." The little animal started grooming his whiskers with his small paws, completely ignoring the fact that he was surrounded by